Yes, I am laying down. Uh, but, laying down makes me look fatter, doesn't it? See how my cheek is hanging? Or something like that. It could just be because I just ate. It could also be because I'm not wearing my wig. How about if I turn over this way? Now I'm red. How about right here? Not bad. Why do I look so fat? No. Is it the light? Being rich is anti rock and roll. No, not being rich, but doing, what is the word I want to use? Not mundane, monotonous. Uh, mm, I'm looking for what is it that you know? Why am I not rich? Did I just fail at life? Did I just suck at life? Was it that? Was it that I never really wanted to be rich in the first place? Was it that I saw being working like, monotonous jobs to become rich as a kind of just anti rock and roll thing? I'm not in a rock band. No. Uh, but like I remember seeing uh, how do you say his name? Christ? Is it Christ Novoselic? I'm not even sure. I was a big Nirvana fan. I still can't. Sometimes it slips my mind how to say that guy's name. Chris Novoselic, the bassist from Nirvana. I remember, you know, 10 years after Kurt committed suicide and Nirvana was done. Right. I see Chris on TV wearing some suit and tie. He's working as some kind of job. One of those jobs, one of those anti rock and roll jobs. I don't mean it's anti rock and roll like it's opposed to rock and roll. I just mean it's like this isn't the sort of job for a rock and roll guy to be doing. You know, I almost feel like I'd rather see him strung out on heroin, with a guitar, just trying to be half as good as Kurt Cobain was. This is one of my theories. this idea. Of course, they're not. It could be multiple. There could be multiple factors here, right? In why it is that I'm not rich. At 48 years old, I've had plenty of time to become rich. I've never. I wouldn't say that I've never made an effort. Uh, I I when I had a job making decent money working for my father, I was putting money into the stock market, into cryptocurrencies, and that sort of thing. But that job didn't last very long. Uh, so that was just in the last 4 years, right? It's 2024. I started working for my father in 2020 when the pandemic started. By 2022, I'd probably put about $6,000 into stocks and crypto, and then I took it all back out to buy the bus and to buy tools and to that sort of thing. And for the last 2 years, I haven't averaged. When I moved into the bus, I calculated that I needed to make about $300 a week to have financial security, right? Just to feel like I have all my bases covered. I don't pay rent. I don't pay for electricity. It would be nice to pay for a phone bill. It would be nice to pay for internet if internet is separate from the phone bill. It would be nice too to pay for, say, like an Adobe subscription, so I can use Photoshop and Illustrator and some of these other apps, Adobe apps, which is about $53 a month. That would be nice. There was some Google stuff that I think I wanted to pay for, but I did the calculations and I calculated that $300 a week. Did I say $300 a month earlier? I don't know what I said, but $300 a week is what I calculated that I needed to make in order just to not worry about money. Not to get rich, but just to not worry about money. But in the last 2 years, I think I've averaged like maybe $100 a week. Of course, that is counting all the months that I didn't make any money at all. I didn't have a job. And, you know, part of that's because I didn't want to work. But what I mean when I say that I didn't want to work is that I didn't want to do jobs that I don't want to do. You know? Like I worked all day today, right? Well, I shouldn't say all day today. I worked let's see, I got up around, I think around 12 o'clock noon. I went to Starbucks and worked on a writing project that I'm working on. I'm writing an analysis of Game of Thrones. And I wrote and I wrote and I made some artwork and I wrote some more. And I don't know how many hours I spent total today writing, but I did work. The only thing is I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not getting paid for the project. This is something that I'm doing because I want to do it. And I feel like this is what I would like to be doing. I feel like I would like to be working on projects that I want to work on. I would, at this point in my life, I feel like I'd rather work on these projects and not get paid for it than work on something I don't want to work on and get paid for it. But that's kind of what I mean by the kind of anti-rock and roll thing, right? Because when you think of like what a rock and roll artist is, a successful rock and roll artist is someone who does what they want to do and they get paid for it. It's like I really just want to. This song is in my heart and I want to sing it. And guess what? I'm gonna get rich doing it. That's a little bit different than going and sitting in a cubicle somewhere doing something that you have to stay caffeinated to do because it's so you're just like, I really don't give a damn about this stuff. I'm only doing it because I'm getting paid. That's kind of what I mean by the anti-rock and roll thing, but not entirely, right? I don't know what it is. I don't. I'm currently. I wouldn't say that I'm working on a story. I started a story a while back called The Tranny of K-Town, which was going to be an homage to rock and roll. It's a story about a trans kid in a small town, but the story was meant to kind of in a way capture like that rock and roll spirit, I guess. And like I was gonna have the character, sing on stage and that sort of thing, and you know, I don't even know what. Uh, I never made it very far with the story. But the story was in in a way, in a major kind of way, uh, an attempt to reflect on my own life, right? To process what's going on in my own life, to maybe help me figure out what it is that I want to do. Because sometimes it is a little bit easier for me to see the path of a character that I'm writing. If I just make up a character and I'm writing the story for this character, it's sometimes easier for me to see the path for that character than it is for me to see my own path in life. And sometimes when I'm stuck, I'll think, what would this character do? Because I do have more than one character, and I have more than one story, and I find it's a good way to uh, process, things that I'm going through. But I don't think it's a coincidence that I start these stories and I have so far I have not been able to finish them, and that I feel stuck in my own life and I don't see the path in my own life. I don't think that's a coincidence. But in this story in particular, the Tranny of K-Town that I'm working on, that's kind of this rock and rollish kind of thing that I think I was considered writing it as a novel, but I think what I'll do is I'll just paint the entire thing instead and make a storyboard sort of thing where the the quality of the painting is not going to be like fine art. Maybe it'll be better than most storyboards. If you see storyboards from movies, like this is like the pre-production storyboards. Usually the artwork is just really sketchy and kind of in some cases shitty. But this will be the idea here is for it to be more expressive and for it to have a kind of uh, musical quality to it, right? Where was I going with that? So, but that kind of in a way informs the path of the character because it's really hard for me to picture this character working at a computer doing data analysis for 8 hours out of the day, 5 days a week. Just like, I mean, who wants to watch that story? Who wants to see that movie? But if my life is a movie, shouldn't I watch the movie that I want to watch, right? Uh, or is that a problem? You know, is there is it possible that the reason that I'm not rich and the reason that I really haven't really accomplished much either, maybe I should include that in the I should have included that from the beginning, is I haven't really accomplished much. I've never finished a story that I've started, or most of my paintings I consider to be unfinished. Uh, how much of that is from me kind of wanting to live in this movie, right? And not wanting to, my movie to be kind of stained with these, you know, monotonous jobs where I'm there just to make a paycheck. Uh, this like suit and tie, you know, I'm a stiff, I'm a stiff I have a stapler in my briefcase. I have those little clips. I got a bunch of those in my briefcase. I have a calculator and a, I don't know, clipboard or something like that. And sometimes I get those little the big paper folder things that you put on an easel, and I flip the page and I draw with my magic marker, and I say the status of Team B is intermediate, whatever. You know, is it is it just that, like, when I picture my life as a movie, I just don't want to see that in it. You know, it's almost like I'd rather see myself strung out on heroin with a guitar, trying to make it work. You know, broke, hungry. Yeah. Words like selling out come to mind. You know, remember like uh, people used to talk about like rock artists selling out. In some cases, that meant like changing their style for commercial purposes, but it also meant like, you stopped drinking and stopped playing guitar, and you became a really boring suit and tie wearing stiff. Uh, I do wonder if that's not part of why my life never really got off the ground. I'm not going to say that I'm not talented enough to be a rock star. I'm not going to say that. I would say that I wasn't in the right place at the right time, probably, you know? Maybe. I mean, it's not the best way to look at it. I don't know. I mean, would you know of John Lennon if John Lennon and Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr and George Harrison had never met each other? If it was just John Lennon going to bars and drinking by himself and never met the other three guys, would you still have heard of him? Maybe. Maybe he might have met somebody else. And instead of forming the Beatles, they would have formed the Slugs. And, instead of Hey Jude, they would have written Hey Bobby. I don't know what. But, you know, excuse me. I'm not going to say that I'm holding on to the dream of being a rock star. I don't even see it as that. Like right now, living in the bus, the things that I think about doing are like the projects that I'm already working on. The Game of Thrones analysis that I'm doing, the stories that I've started, some of the paintings that I've started, uh, making jewelry, things like that. These are the sorts of things that I feel like are kind of, they fit into that movie that I want to see. You know, but brushing my teeth doesn't fit into that movie. You know, but I got to do it anyways, right? Uh, Going to the doctor and getting checked up and that sort of thing, that doesn't really fit into the movie, but I do it anyways, right? Uh, I don't know. Every now and then, somehow I got stuck on this idea of being a U.S. ambassador to China. When I say stuck on it, I don't mean like I have. It's a fantasy. Like I'm fantasizing about being a U.S. ambassador to China. When I say stuck on it, I mean it keeps coming up when I have these like discussions about my potential and where I could be. It's like, oh yeah, if I would put my effort into it, I could probably be a U.S. ambassador to China. Somehow that came to be my kind of symbol of success, or like the highest, I guess, like aspiration that I could think of. Uh, for some reason, I like that better than being president. I just don't see myself as being president. Maybe I don't know. I don't know why. I really don't know why it was ambassador, and I have a good idea of why it was China, but I don't know. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it's something that I really do want. Maybe it's something that somewhere inside of me is a little, if my being is like a nation, there's probably some city there inside of me where all the people are like, U.S. ambassador to China, you got it, you got this, right? You know, but it is a divided nation, right? The people on this side of the country don't agree with the people on this side of the country, and this is another reason why my life never really went anywhere. Uh, a lot of times, like today, I was walking back from Starbucks. I worked on my lap. I go to Starbucks to work on my laptop because I use their Wi-Fi and their for power. And to get there, I walk on an access road. It's not really even an access road. It's not a. It's a road that goes beside the interstate. And so, a lot of times when I'm walking by the interstate and cars are passing me, just shoo, 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 shoo. Uh, I have this sense that I'm like surrounded by this great machine. It's like a giant machine, and all these cars. You could call it a body too, and like the interstate is like a blood vessel, and it's just like blood is just flowing by me. Like I can hear it now. I can hear the cars going by, and it's just a constant drone. I'm not far from the interstate. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell which is the road right out here and which one is the interstate, because there's a road that crosses the interstate right here, and I think I've figured out what sound is the road and which is the interstate. But if I just sit and listen to it, that's what I imagine in my head. It's like because of that constant drone. It's almost like when you're sitting in your apartment and it's quiet and your refrigerator kicks on as there's that. That's kind of what it's like, but it's far off in the distance, and it's so constant because there's so many cars going on the interstate that if I didn't know what it was, I would think it was some kind of giant machine way out there. Uh, and I say that because I thought that once. I was sitting here one day and I was listening. I was like, "What is that noise?" because it doesn't. And there are times when it just doesn't stop. And anyways, uh, the feeling that I have a lot of times when I get that picture of this like giant machine is that like I want to be in the middle of it. That I want to be kind of immersed in it and a part of it, and I want to see the whole machine. I want to kind of understand it and see how it works and see does the government really do anything, or are they just kind of like a person on the back of a giant machine and they're just like holding on for dear life saying we hope this goes in the right direction. That was actually a line that I was going to put in the story that I just mentioned. So I was going to have a scene in that story where the character goes and sits beside the interstate, in one of these kind of depressive modes where he's like, I just need to go. I need to get away. Need to get away from people. He finds this kind of nook beside the interstate and hears the cars going down the road, and he's like, sometimes I feel like I'm in the midst of this great machine, and I want to be down in it. Something like that. I never did actually write it out. It's still only in my head. But that, in a way, is kind of, if there is any part of it where the kind of rock and rollness of it, I feel like is acceptable, is by kind of seeing it in that way, seeing it in this uh, cartoonish way. It is a kind of cartoonish way of looking at things. Kind of. I mean, the metaphor makes sense, right? A nation is a body, right? People, I think a lot of people would accept that as a working metaphor. A nation is a body. A nation is a machine. But it's not even a nation. Because when I see trucks going on the highway, I'm sure some of those are carrying stuff from China, right? So it's not just the United States. There are parts of the machine here that come from all over the world, right? What do I have to do with that? What does that have to do with me? Uh, I don't know. I have no idea. My butt crack itches right on my tailbone. I went and looked at Google's certificate program, and I saw they have a data analytics certificate. I believe it said something like 3 to 6 months to complete it. I don't know why it would be 3 to 6 months. Why it seems like it would be one or the other. I guess unless it's self-paced, maybe. Hmm. Uh, but I had that feeling. I had that feeling that like what one is what that this could get me into the machine, but the other part of it was that just sounds like this is the work for zombies. This is the kind of work zombies do. Maybe I should put some zombies in my story. The Tranny of K-Town is a story about a trans person who fights zombies. No. Yeah? The Tranny Zombie Hunter. Oh. I'm not interested in hunting zombies. I'm more interested in making sure I don't become one. But maybe I've been one all along. Maybe I've been a zombie all along just because I have this movie playing in my head. And I don't want to change. I'm just a slave to the movie in my head. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to go to sleep and wake up not a zombie. Am I a zombie or am I a rebel? A living rebel who insists on being a rock star until the day he dies, even though he doesn't play on stage. What am I talking about? Do I look cute now? Do I look cuter? Are my eyes pretty? I think I run out of stuff to say. I run out of stuff to say. In my story, I have my character. I think at one point I considered having him join the circus because that sounds like a rock and roll thing to do, doesn't it? Joining the circus or starting his own troupe of actors, and they drive around in like a box truck that's been painted to look like some kind of gypsy wagon. They drive around and put on shows for people like these performance art type things where some of it's like dancing and some of it's some pantomime stuff or whatever. At one point, I had my character become a cult leader because that's kind of rock and roll, isn't it? Being a cult leader, doing some occult stuff, teaching people how to interact with their inner rock star and their inner artist and their inner uh, Dionysus. Uh, isn't that what a cult leader does? A good cult leader does. He doesn't tell people to go get a job as a data analyst. Good cult leaders don't do that, do they? What kind of cult leader would tell you to go get a job as a data analyst for Google, making $100,000 a year? What kind of cult leader would do that? Not a cool one. You gotta be cool. You gotta be cool in life. Working as a data analyst just ain't cool. It just ain't cool. I need a cool job. I need a job that makes me look like James Dean. Except a witch. If James Dean had been a witch, cool witch, like James Dean. I need an artificial intelligence to draw me a picture of James Dean as a witch. People will say that's wicked. I'm like, yeah, I know. Wicked. No. I'm getting sleepy. What have I learned in this episode? There are times when I think the country would be better off if there was some amount of regression. You know, if certain structures of society were to collapse, I think it might make society better. I can't say exactly which ones, but I think what happens is things become stale and stagnant, and people get too much into like these comfort zones. You know, they get this idea of what life is all about, and really has nothing to do with life. It's not life at all. Which is how you end up with a bunch of zombies. You get a country full of zombies because they all have their ideas about what life is supposed to be. You get married and have kids, go to work 5 days a week, 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Work, save up money, go fishing on a occasion. That's what life is supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be. Is there anything more zombie than living life the way it's supposed to be? Isn't that like the most zombie thing you can do? Isn't the most rock and roll thing to do is to live life the way it's not supposed to be? Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. If you embrace the chaos and say, you know what, I think I might take estrogen today and grow some boobs. I didn't think I wanted that when I was 5 years old, but you know what, I'm going to try it just because I can. Join the circus. Join the circus. You're here to put on a show for somebody. Who am I putting on a show for? The light flickering. Either that means my battery's starting to go dead. Usually that happens when I turn the computer on. Right now the computer's sleeping. It's a good time to turn off the thing, I think. Because it looks like I'm going to lose my light here in a second.